Hey everyone, I am back to look at the third out of the 4 dungeon boards, and this is the Cavern of Lost Souls. And I was talking to the very awesome DJ Davis, and I've mentioned him before, and when you're done watching this, stay here on YouTube and go over to the Dungeon Dive and subscribe to his channel. He does just awesome videos there. Everything that we love. Dungeon crawl games, adventure games. Check out his extended look at the Warhammer Quest, like the 1995 Warhammer Quest. And he's just a tremendously nice guy. And I'm looking forward to going on his show later this year, and we're going to meet and we're going to game it up. So check out the Dungeon Dive. But we talked on the phone a few weeks ago for a long time. We had actually a really good time, and he had mentioned the Cavern of Lost Souls was his favorite dungeon board out of the 4. And a lot of people have said that. And this is the one that, I'm going to set this down right here, and you can see already how colorful and vibrant this one is. This really, the adjustments we made really benefited this board. I mean, look at the water, and kind of like this is the Mystic Falls, the water, how nice and blue it is. Here's Blackmar Grotto. Very nice. But anyway, I'm going to get back to that. But if you've noticed that all the dungeon boards, I wanted to design them to be completely different from each other. So, just to give you, something unique for each one. But all the dungeon boards are 3 by 2 feet. But for some reason, this one just feels vast. And, like my idea, what I wanted to design this is I wanted to have a lot of stuff in an outdoor area and a hidden dungeon tucked away in the back for another story I'm working on for the expansion. So before we get into the tour of it, I'm just going to show you a couple highlights. And again, from what we worked on with the manufacturer, everything just looks just so much better. It's just so much more bright. Patrol routes. Take a look at that. You can see that perfectly clear now. Again, I think out of all the boards, this one really benefited from the extra tweaks. Like over here in the Valley of Shadows. Take a look at that. And Sean Ellis, I gave this to him and he painted it. So there's the Valley of Shadows. This is kind of a creepy area right here. And here is the Chamber of Last Rites. Look how that looks. And then here is the, trying to look through the camera, Sanctum of Oblivion. And before, again, the proof copy of the boards look good, but they needed this. They needed that. They needed to turn it up a bit, and that's exactly what we did, where you can now, all the colors, it just pops. It's just so colorful. And definitely right over here, this is Pit of the Blood God. And an amazing job. Look at all that. Actually, I have to, one day I'm going to have to show you the prototype board I built, because this was even more gruesome. And Sean just kind of turned it down a bit. It was kind of a very gruesome scene in there. So one day I'll have to print out a regular one that he worked off of, and we'll show that. But anyway, hopefully you can see how nice this board came out. Over here, like the Swamp of Sorrow area, take a look at the murky green water. And there's the bridge right there with our cleric. That's a cool shot. That's Horus. And the undead general of the ravaged undead army. They're hinted about, more on them in the expansion. And again, read all their origin stories. I wrote origin stories for all 8 guardians and all the monsters, and you'll see how all of this ties together. So, but again, you can just see it looks so awesome. Again, look at those patrol routes. They just pop right off the board. So if you want, let's just take a quick tour of this. if you'd like to know more about it. But it just feels vast, and I think at the end of this you'll see what I mean. But siege, remember we learned about the siege tile. It's right here. White box is where you place your heroes. Standard way to play is 6 heroes and your fetch hound Albus, but as you saw my other videos, you can tweak this game to your heart's content. You can play with 3 heroes, 4 heroes, 5, 6 heroes, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you have the expansion, you can play with 8, 10, and 12 heroes, like a raid scenario. And I'm sure that there's going to be people out there creating scenarios and quests for that, as I will be. But they start out here at the siege tile. And the quests I wrote for this were very, very unique for this area. So if we head east, we're going to go over here into the Swamp of Sorrow west. Very cool area. Across the bridge, and there's the other. I don't have that quite lined up, but right. So then it goes over here into the next part of the Swamp of Sorrow. And then it comes over here to Dugan's excavation camp. Check that out. Got a tent there. I don't know if it's just me looking through this, but it just looks kind of 3D here, and got a bunch of skeletal grunts that invaded in there. There's like a cart. And the one quest you'll learn about this, that Dugan's excavation camp was brought in to clear out this cavern, and they kind of discovered this area in the back, this hidden dungeon that was tucked away back there by this ancient race. I'll leave it at that. So we're going to come back to that, but that's one way. There's many ways into this cavern, but this is one of them where they kind of started to dig inside of the cavern. And this is the billowing cavern right here. But if we keep going east, this is this board is very unique with this right here. If you notice, let me get you down, there's a ladder with arrows. And what that is when the heroes come down here and monsters, they can go down that ladder and they come out here in the underground passage. So monsters, as you see, there's a patrol route there. Monsters can use that just like your heroes could use that. So that's a little bit about this. But this area is called Ren's Sanctuary. And Ren is a character I created. She's a famous hero in Avalon. So this is kind of like was her hideout right here. And if we keep going over, this is kind of like a creepy crypt area called Crypt of the Betrayer, south and north. Again, amazing job from Sean. And then I think we'll save this part when we come back. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to head north. So we get over here to the Mystic Falls, and we got kind of like a battle going on with Sir Brennus and Lorena. And on this suspended bridge, when that's Bainvik, one of the Guardians. Now, up north is the village of Briarwood, and I wrote a few quests about this area right here. But if we head over here east, this over here is Raven's Cove. Hopefully that comes into focus. Hopefully it comes into focus. But this is Raven's Cove. And again, another one of those secret entrances into this cavern. And if we keep going in, see how there's this shallow water here? We made, this is Blackmar Grotto. We got some like big oversized mushrooms in there. And then notice there's like these rocks that are steps. This goes into the Guardian, Red Widow's lair. So this is Red Widow's lair west, and then it goes over to the east. Some cobwebs, and we'll just shoot over here real quick. So that's like the other part of it there. And there's our heroes, Cain Redfeather and Jorah Oakhart. So we're going to come back down here into Blackmar Grotto, and if we come over here, you'll notice we'll be in the Billowing Cavern. And that, again, like when we looked at it, comes right down here to Dugan's excavation camp. Let's go out of here. Hopefully you're following all this. This is a very cool, complex dungeon board. So we're going to come back over here to the Mystic Falls. And as I said, if we keep going up north, there is this little village called Briarwood. And again, like from tweaking the colors, the brightness, look at like how like there's that blue kind of like mist. Very cool. Patrol routes, looking great. So all of this right here is, like that's Eastern, was that right? Eastern Briarwood, Northern Briarwood, and Southern Briarwood. Cool area right here is Dark Moon Logging Camp. And there's a very cool quest I wrote called, oh my gosh, what is it? Nara's Plight. And it's a quest where you have to get over here to the Dark Moon Logging Camp and get supplies for her to build weapons, to make weapons and armor for the Avalon Valiant Army. So you have to get over here and get some supplies from Dark Moon Logging Camp. So if we keep going over here to the east out of Briarwood, moving north out of Dark Moon Logging Camp, we'll come into the Valley of Shadows. And one of the quests I wrote has this little girl named Annie, and she will tell you when you're playing about what the Valley of Shadows is. It's a very cool area, again, like that blue fog, patrol routes, looking good. There is another Blackwood Prowler in the Valley of Shadows. And if we keep moving over to the east, we're going to come into this area here. And this is the Forbidden Cave. And the whole thing about this little story I wrote, guys, I wrote a lot of stories for this game, but the villagers of Briarwood were told never to enter into the Valley of Shadows, and definitely do not go into the Forbidden Cave. And that because just weird things happen in here. And creepy crawlers come out of here. So there is the Forbidden Cave. And then if we go down, that goes down into Red Widow's lair. But if we keep going back over here to the east, this is that kind of like creepy dungeon with the Chamber of Last Rites. And kind of like when I did this, it was like, as you'll learn, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there were steps that, you notice there's villagers in here. And there were like steps from the Chamber of Last Rites into the Sanctum of Oblivion. And if we keep going over, that's when we stop. There's Crypt of the Betrayer. We're coming back up here. And then this is the Chamber of Lost Souls. And you notice kind of like these bodies with these souls coming out of them. And there is a Shadow Servant to the Pit of the Blood God. You notice there's some bones in there, and really Sean toned this down. My original one was quite, I don't know, violent. It was very gory. So PG-13 rating. But so that's kind of like the Cavern of Lost Souls. So hopefully you can see, actually no, we forgot this. Going over here, there's just one more section here. This is the Hidden Passage. We did talk about that. And so that can kind of get you up into these dungeon and over here to the crypt. And of course, there's that little ladder to come out. So there you go. There is the Cavern of Lost Souls. I hope you liked that tour. So I am going to get, our last video here will be the Tomb of Kaladar. And that is kind of like a death trap dungeon. There's things I created called environmental hazards, and it was the first dungeon board where I created the traps. Then we put the traps into all the dungeon boards so you can use them. It was a backer request, and of course we could do that, and I wanted to do that. So there you go. We'll be back with that, and that will wrap up the series on all the revised dungeon boards. So I will see you in a little bit, guys.